Hello amigos! In this video we'll talk about something important when it comes to riding a motorcycle. Something that surprisingly a lot of new riders completely overlook. And it tends to bite them in the ass later, when they struggle to control the bike. I'm talking about the way we sit on the motorcycle. At first glance, the whole thing might seem ridiculous. What's the big deal, right? You just sit however feels comfortable, and that's that. However, there are actually a few things about our riding position that we can improve in order to not just feel more comfortable, but to control the bike better too. Sometimes, just by looking how a rider sits on a bike, you can instantly tell whether he really knows what he's doing. So, in order to become better, safer and more confident riders, right from the start, let's talk about proper body position. If you've just stumbled onto this channel for the first time, my name is Andrei Bodrov. I make videos about how to ride motorcycles in a confident and safe manner. Subscribe and browse the channel. There are tons of interesting videos here just waiting for you. And don't forget to check out my courses for beginner and advanced riders. They will definitely take your riding to the next level. Simples! So, what's wrong with the way many new riders sit on a motorcycle? Typically, a beginner just plops themselves somewhere in the middle of the seat, puts their heels on the foot pegs because this way they don't have to reach far for the rear brake, and their knees aren't doing anything at all. They just sort of flop around. Essentially, our rider is sitting on the bike like they would sit on a chair. The only difference is they have to extend their arms forward to reach the handlebars. This kind of intuitive riding position comes with a whole set of problems. Sitting on the bike like this, without being properly secured, allows our center of mass to flop around quite a bit when we accelerate, brake or turn quickly. This makes our cornering wobbly and can even lead to a phenomenon called whiskey throttle, where the rider completely loses control of the bike. Here's what happens. When the bike accelerates, the rider's body gets thrown backwards, like this. That motion causes the throttle to open even more, which makes the situation worse. And the kicker is that now he can't let go of the throttle because he's clinging to the handlebars just to avoid falling off the bike. That's why whiskey throttle almost always ends with a spectacular crash. Even if whiskey throttle doesn't happen, this kind of floppy riding posture still creates problems. Since we presumably want to keep our flopping body on the bike, we end up gripping the handlebars too tightly, causing more fatigue to our arms. Sitting too far back and reaching for the bars also means we can't steer effectively. And the feet, just dangling from the foot pegs, are about to go on a date with the pavement the moment the bike leans a bit more than usual. So, as we can see, the position that feels most natural at first isn't necessarily the best. Luckily, we can tweak a few things. Let's start with our arms. When riding on paved roads, ideally we want to give the steering as much freedom as possible. Thanks to the geometry of motorcycle steering, the front wheel constantly self-steers and self-corrects as we move forward. This is what gives our bike its stability. Most of the time, we just want to let the front wheel do its job and interfere with it as little as possible. Loose and relaxed arms are key to that. With handlebars, we want to control the bike, not strangle it like it owes us money. If we sit a little closer to the tank and/or lean forward slightly, we can keep our arms bent, loose and very relaxed. This way, we allow the front wheel to do its thing. We are not restricting its movement. Plus, with relaxed arms and hands, we can now operate the throttle, brake and clutch much more precisely than before. Additionally, since our elbows are bent, we now have a full range of motion for steering, unlike what we had previously. Also, let's take a look at how we position our hands. Of course, this is partly a matter of personal preference, but most people feel the most comfortable and in control when they have a flat wrist, like this. It allows for a direct transfer of force during steering. If our wrists are bent like this, they can flex a bit while steering, which can lead to extra fatigue over time. So, if it is not the case, it may be a good idea to tweak your lever settings a bit and move them up or down, so you can have more or less flat wrist when you use the control. Now, let's move on to the feet. Instead of letting them dangle like this, we can place the balls of our feet on the foot pegs and tuck them closer to the bike. First, this will prevent us from accidental pedicure procedure when the bike is leaning, which is great. And second, it allows us to stand up on the foot pegs if we need to ride over a pothole or jump a speed bump. Additionally, if we look closely, most road bikes have a little metal plate near the foot pegs. It is weirdly convenient to rest our foot against it, almost as if someone intentionally put it here. I wonder if it was the case. This helps us feel even more planted on the bike. This is default position for our feet. For beginners, it is a very good habit to return to this default position every time after braking or shifting gears. One question I get asked pretty often: shouldn't we always keep our feet on the controls, on the shifter and on the rear brake? It seems like a good idea, since we'd be able to apply the rear brake or shift gears quickly without moving our feet. But there is a problem. To do that, we'd have to be very conscious not to press the brake or shifter by accident. Like in this example, where the rider forgets about the rear brake and just rests his foot on it. Obviously, that's going to break your brake pretty quickly. Plus, if we constantly keep our feet on the brake and shifter like this, it is really easy to accidentally bump them when we go over a pothole or a speed bump. So, we might accidentally downshift or jab the rear brake, which definitely won't help with stability. Because of all that, it really pays off not to be lazy. Keep your feet securely on the foot pegs and move them only when you actually need to brake or shift. Another important part of our riding position is our knees. We can use them to clamp ourselves to the motorcycle. This prevents us from flopping our weight around the bike, and it also takes excess weight off our arms. And remember, it is super important to keep those arms loose and relaxed. So, it is a good idea to keep our knees slightly pressed against the tank. It's not really necessary when riding in a straight line at constant speed, but when we accelerate, brake or go through corners, it starts to help a lot. To build the habit, when you are practicing your riding skills, you can try putting something like a piece of paper between your knee and the tongue. For best results, I recommend a $100 bill. If it stays there during your exercises, you're doing a great job. And now we are left with the upper body. Notice that once we have our arms, feet and legs in place, like we discussed earlier, there is only so much room left for our upper body to move. In a way, it's kind of forced into a certain position after everything else is set. That's why, for example, on sport bikes we are practically forced to sit like a shrimp. If we try to sit up straight, we end up with completely straight and locked arms, which leads to poor handling. These bikes are built for performance, not comfort. On the other end of the spectrum, take a touring bike, for example. We can sit completely upright and still have loose, bent arms, and our feet will still be in the right position. So, our upper body position is actually determined by where our arms and legs are, not the other way around. Still, there are a couple of things about upper body position that are worth mentioning. For general street riding, it is usually better to keep your back straight, not hunched. If you need to reach the handlebars instead of bending your spine like this, it is better to lean forward, like this. This way, on longer rides, we'll have less fatigue in the neck, because it'll be straighter too. Another important thing about the upper body is how we use our core muscles. We use our feet and legs to anchor ourselves to the bike, and we engage our core during braking, acceleration and cornering to stop our body from flopping around and messing with the bike's trajectory. Alright, we've covered the most important points about how we sit on a motorcycle. Let's quickly summarize them. Correct riding position revolves around our hands and arms. We should keep them bent, loose and relaxed. We use them to steer and control the bike, not to hold on to it. We tuck our feet higher and closer to the bike, so we don't accidentally clip them while cornering, and we move them only when it's necessary. We clamp ourselves to the bike with our knees and feet. That's what keeps us well planted when we corner, accelerate or brake quickly. And finally, we engage our core muscles to stop our upper body from flopping around all over the bike. Now, before we wrap it up, just like any self-respecting YouTuber, I must shamelessly beg you to drop a like on this video and subscribe so more people can find this channel. But of course, that's only if you think it's worth seeing. Also, I have to mention our sponsor, Ultramax Cell, the brand behind what in my opinion are the best thermal base layers for motorcycle riders. What sets Ultramax Cell apart is the material, a cutting-edge polypropylene fiber with a unique three-dimensional structure. This design creates a compression effect, ensuring the fabric fits snugly and performs efficiently across your entire body. The real magic is in the 3D honeycomb structure, which increases the material's surface area. This allows it to wick moisture away from your skin and evaporate it quickly. In hot weather, when worn under ventilated riding gear, this enhances evaporative cooling, keeping you cool and comfortable. In cold conditions, the honeycomb design traps more air around your body, providing extra insulation and keeping you warm. Compared to standard thermal clothing, Ultramax Cell is a major upgrade. I can highly recommend it. I'll include an Amazon link in the video description, along with their direct contact information. Depending on your location, you might even find a better deal by contacting them directly. And that's it for today, guys! Thank you for watching, ride safely, and have a wonderful day! Bye!